everyone. Welcome to the In-Depth Genealogist Chit Chat Live, where we're doing an interview with Christine Woodcock. She is the owner of the Genealogy Tours of Scotland. And if we can all keep a straight face, we'll get through this in a half an hour. So first of all, I want to introduce the IDG Executive Director, Terry O'Connell. Hi, Terry.
Hey, Val, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
You're like all coordinating today. Nails, lips.
Nails. I know.
I know. And even though it's not a Scotland t-shirt, I'm wearing my Jamaica t-shirt.
Hey, hang on. I got to change my shirt. I'll be right back.
Too late.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I want to do a genealogy tour to Jamaica, but today we're talking about Scotland, and I want to welcome Christine Woodcock. Hi.
Hey.
No, you can't change your shirt.
Not on air anyway.
No. Well, you could.
This is like the only one I own that doesn't say something about Scotland. Look at that. I happen to be wearing it. What the heck?
And you don't even have your sunglasses and nails done.
Where are they?
Oh, man.
I should have. Totally.
Oh, well, we will try and get through this. And good luck with that is in keeping on topic. But again, I want to emphasize it's on Genealogy Tours of Scotland. And Christine, I want to ask you, starting off with, what got you started with Genealogy Tours of Scotland and brought you to that?
Right. So after I got into so I'm from Scotland. That's basically what got me into it. And my granny's house was in Scotland. My grandpa's house was in Scotland. We were in Scotland all the time. And when we weren't there, they were with us. So it was just a constant summer of, Scottishness and people from Scotland. And when I started doing genealogy research, and I've always been sort of like a teacher person, right? I think that it's easier for me to learn if I have to teach somebody else, because if I can get the concept across to them, then I know that I've understood it, right? So I was going around doing talks and stuff, and I was just absolutely gobsmacked at the number of people who said to me, I hope one day to get to Scotland. And I'm like, you've never been? How can you be Scottish descendant and never have been to Scotland? That's crazy in my mind. So I remember a marketing teacher back in high school saying to me, well, not saying to me personally, but saying to the class, the way to become successful at something is to find what the need is, to find the gap and fill it. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, there's the gap right there. People haven't been to Scotland. So I'm going to take them and I'm going to do it in such a way that they're going to research while they're there. So it's not just to come to Scotland, go visit the clans and castles and, historic places or the seaside or any of that stuff. It's we're going to go and we're going to look specifically for our ancestors and, find them on the shelves, as I like to say. And then I was contacted by a man in Scotland who he was starting up his business right around the same time as me. And when he contacted me, it sounded like he was doing the same thing and he thought we could collaborate. And I'm like, no. No.
Someone doesn't share well with others.
No, my idea. Anyway, what it turned out to be was, and I don't know if you've met him, Val, but Terry, you met him, and Roots Tech, Ian. So what Ian does, he does ancestral tours, but he takes people right to the place where their ancestors lived, or takes them to the graves, or to the churches, to all that kind of stuff. So we partnered up and do that together, so that I have people that if they want to go beyond just kind of looking at the records and finding their ancestors and their stories, if they want to go and see the places, then I hook them up with Ian, and Ian does a personalized tour with them. And so they get a really, really well-rounded experience when they're there. It really is just kind of like your own, who do you think you are, right? It's awesome.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
And, who would not want to do that part of it? I would want to be just enthralled and encased in all the records. But if you had the chance to go to the cemetery, right, or go on location where they, lived and worked the land, of course.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So now when you first started this, were you living in Scotland at the time?
No, ma'am. I was living in Canada.
In Canada. Okay. Okay. And that's when you heard about filling the gap and taking that on.
I learned that concept back in high school, but sort of when I realized that that was the gap, I remember hearing my teacher's voice saying, "There's a gap, fill it, and you're going to be successful." And I thought, hey, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So that was in 2010 was sort of when the idea hit, and then it was 2011 when I started the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I had people sign up, and then they backed out because they weren't really sure, and it's like, oh. But it's like the first year of anything, right, is a killer.
Yeah.
And probably really the first 5 years when you're starting up any sort of new business, you just got to kind of plug on, you see the end, you see the goal, and just keep moving forward. And now, the tours sell out a year in advance, and I do very little advertising, and it's fantastic.
Well,
Huh?
How many people do you have?
You're supposed to wait for a gap.
Sorry.
Listen, she's asked 2 or 3 questions. She told me I got the next one.
Go ahead.
So how many
people
take with each group?
So I take 15 researchers. So historically, I've taken 15 researchers, and part of that is if the group gets too big, then I wind up being like a border collie, right? And I'm just constantly, and I could be like that anyway. I don't need to be like that on an organized tour.
Right.
And the other thing is that you don't want to overwhelm the facilities, right? The archives and stuff. And a lot of them are fairly small. They're not, big, huge places. And so I don't want to overstay my welcome with them. And so 15 works out really well, and we get together every morning for breakfast, and we talk about the day. And so, but then what I did was I added on. I had people who had returned; they had come more than once on a tour, and they asked. They said, it'd be really nice to do kind of like a second level, right? Like this is sort of 101. Let's do 201. And so I put together a tour last year, just kind of sort of thinking, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And so we do Glasgow, and we go because the other tours are in Edinburgh. And I put a Glasgow tour together. It sold out in 2 weeks. So it showed me that the need was there. So that one was a bit smaller this year because it was sort of the inaugural year. So we had 12, and I've already got 15 signed up for next year, and I really can't take any more because the places just can't manage anymore.
Right.
Well, then it becomes, like you said, where you feel like you're a collie dog, and then also too, the places, if they are small, can't really service more than that many people.
Right. I mean, we go to one of the family history societies we go to. They're phenomenal. They have 1-to-1 volunteers for the people when we go.
Oh, that's lovely.
But, if you've got 10 people and 10 volunteers, it's crazy making.
Yeah.
Right? You just can't do that. So you've really just kind of got to think about all angles of it. And then I did a tour to the Highlands, which was sort of a one-off, but oh my God, it was the best tour ever. Because I did Ian's part. I drove them around. We filled in all kinds of history stuff, and I got them in the back of a 9-seater van. Me in a 9-seater van in the Highlands. My son said to me today, "Yeah, I got to see that happen." You driving a van around
any of that? Because I would probably pay to see it.
You need to go. You need to videotape it and also put it on Facebook Live.
I know. I need like a GoPro on the
Yeah. Oh my gosh! So, do you do these tours once a year or more?
Well, last year and this year, I'm doing them twice a year. And then I'm not doing them twice a year again because it's just, what I find, Val, is when I get back, it takes me time to process it all. You have to process what you've learned, what you saw, put it all into perspective, do all that kind of stuff. And I don't have time to do that when I just get back in June and I've got to get ready to go again in September because there's so much work involved with getting people organized for that, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I need time to enjoy this, man.
Yeah.
Could you do like them back to back?
I did do them back to back. I did them back to back in May, and then next year I'm doing the regular Edinburgh one, and then I'm doing a Glasgow one back to back next year. So I'll be there about 3.5 weeks, but it'll be 2 different groups.
Right. That seemed to work out really good because you did have some time in between the groups. The first one, the second one, not much time.
No, I didn't have any.
Oh, I thought you had like a couple of days between leaving.
No, ma'am. I did. the Highland group came down to Glasgow for the Friday, and that was the day of arrival for the Glasgow group. So the Highland group and the Glasgow group were together on the Friday evening, and then we all went to a conference together on the Saturday.
Oh, that's
And
what it
then
was.
the Highland group was done on the Sunday, and I carried on for the week. And then we left there on Saturday morning and moved over to Edinburgh, and the Edinburgh group started on Monday. So I really only had Saturday, Sunday off.
That's got to be hard because you're on constantly. I mean,
Constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly. But you know what? By the time I got to Edinburgh, I felt, and even, reflecting back, I feel really bad for that group. And not because I was tired, but like my body was falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to blow a knee just before I went. I don't think I've blown it. I think it's like a baker's cyst or something. So I didn't do as much walking. I was sore. I managed to get a really bad bladder infection. I'm like, oh. So I fought that whole 10 days I was there to stay out of Emerge.
Yeah.
So you don't go down and have breakfast because you're like, oh, I'm too grumpy to go out and do that, right? This is my business. I don't want to go down and be nasty man. So yeah, they didn't get sort of what the rest of them have had in the past, but
they all had
it is
fun.
what it is. They all had fun,
Yeah.
and they connected really well together. I just wasn't a part of that the way I normally am. So.
And they can do the research. You're not necessarily there to guide them through the research because the facilities do that. So you get a chance to do your own research and have some time there.
Right. I tend not to do research sort of in the records, mostly because, my kids are first generation Canadian. So, I knew a lot of my history going in, and you can only go so far back in the records. But what I do is I will drop them and maybe go, say, to a historic castle or to a historic site and really learn about that and then blog about it. Or I've gone, like I went to the fishing village. We were in a fishing village in Fife this May, and I went to the Fisheries Museum. And, I really believe in social history museums anyway. And I've been to the miners one because I have family that were miners, and, I've done all that. So I thought I'm going to go to the fisheries one just to see what it's like. Well, the amount of stuff that I took for granted, you never would have thought. Like I was fascinated by it. And so then you take pictures, because then when you're doing talks, you've got pictures and you can say to people, but look, this is what they really lived like.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's what caught my eye when I saw your Facebook posts and the pictures and where you were and what you were doing. And I could see, it made me feel like, dang, why don't I have any Scottish ancestry? I had an aunt that lived there, but she was born in Germany. So, but yeah, and unfortunately, when she passed, I had not ever got a chance to meet her in person.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But so when you've done this, Christine, kind of give me a background here. I don't know if Terry knows this or not, but oh well. But oh well. You already have the different locations that you're going to take them already planned. You've already have been there.
A year in advance. Yep.
Okay. So you set that up for everyone. All they have to do is pay for their travel and show up.
Right. So they pay their tour fees to me, and that includes me working with them for about a year. So it's, I have webinars that I do with them. I invite them all to a Dropbox folder where they have recorded webinars in there. There's, information, things like the guidebook for one of the search rooms, how you're supposed to behave, what you can take in, what you can't take in. And then I send really regular emails reminding them of all that kind of stuff. I'll have people who will send me a question, and I think, oh, that's a really good one, and we haven't mentioned that yet. So I'll send out an email to everybody saying, and just kind of incorporate, not saying I've been asked, but just kind of a, and I said to people not to hesitate to ask me questions, even if it seems really silly, because I'm there so often that I take so much for granted. And, you forget that other people don't know that sort of stuff. So
that's awesome. You spend a year with them, before you go. And that's really
and you know what?
generous.
It's really the people that when they don't take advantage of that, they're the ones who whine that they didn't get as much research done or didn't have the success. But you know what? I led you to water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's true. It's true. You could only go so far. And to me, you've provided a huge amount. you know, and especially a year ahead of time. And so then once they arrive there, like their first day there with
Right.
them.
So normally Monday is the day of arrival, and we have a meet and greet in the evening. All right. So we all get together in like the hotel meeting room or lobby or whatever, depending on where we are. And we talk about the week ahead. And so we talk, they've done, you know, they'll talk about who they're researching, the area of Scotland they're researching. And then if there's any, so for the Edinburgh and Glasgow, there's optional tours, guided tours that we can do in the evenings or on weekends. So they sign up for that then and just kind of get all the homework stuff out of the way. And then I remind them every evening what time they need to be back in that spot in the morning to get the taxi. And if you're not there, you're square, because we're all adults. And if you can't figure it out, I'll see you there later.
Right.
The only time I didn't do that was the Highlands, because there's no other way to get around. But so that's kind of how we start. And then every day we have, you know, it's all pre-planned. So they know well in advance sort of where we're going to be and when and for how long and all that kind of stuff. So it works out really, really well.
So when you did the Highlands tour, what made you decide what you were going to go and see?
Right. So I hadn't been to any of the archives in the Highlands. So that was all new to me. But really, so much of the history for the Highlands is so much of having an ancestor who came from the Highlands. You have to know the history. You just have to, because you have to understand what made them leave.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the reason that I timed it the way I did was because every year on the anniversary of the Battle of Culloden, which was sort of the ending of the clan system, they have a memorial service. And so I timed it so that we were all there for that.
Nice.
Right. And so that's sort of how we started. And actually, it was like, no, maybe a week or 2 weeks before we left, the Culloden Center had a couple of guided tours that they did. So we started out, Friday was to be the day of arrival, but everybody arrived on the Thursday. So we went sightseeing on the Friday and went to a castle. And then on the Friday evening, after the center closed, the visitor center closed, they did a walk around the battlefield and explained to us the lead up to the battle. Ooh. And then the next day we went and took part in the memorial service. And, you know, you get the whole parade out there, and yeah, it's very moving.
I saw those when you had posted about that.
Yeah. And then I wanted people to see, I guess last year when I went to Orkney and I took my time to drive up through the Highlands, and I'd been that way before, but, you know, really wanted to stop and get some pictures for when I talk about the clearances. And there were a couple of places that I really wanted to see so I could understand them better. And I thought people need to see this. Like, what used to be thriving communities is just open space. Right? You can go miles and miles and miles and not see a single, and literally miles. You know, I could drive for an hour and not see a single person. And it's very barren and it's beautiful, you know, just because it's so rugged. But that used to be, you know, crofting villages. People were there. They farmed that land, and now there's nothing except a few pieces of rubble to say, yeah, I was here once upon a time. So I wanted the Highland group to be able to see that as well, because that's why their ancestors left. Mm-hmm. And so we did that as well. And we were going up. So I kind of did a circuitous route. I took them to where there's a memorial. It's a cairn for the first Prime Minister of Canada, because his paternal grandparents were from that area. And they've taken the stones that were left from the ruins of his house, and they've made a cairn out of it and a memorial to Sir John A. And it's off the beaten path. I don't know. Because I remember somebody saying to me, how did you even know this was here? So we did that. And then I knew that there was a church where there was a plaque on the outside commemorating the 13th Prime Minister, because his maternal grandparents were from that side, great-grandparents. And so I thought, I wonder if I could see that church. I've seen it online, and I've seen, you know, but I've never actually go toddling. Of course, you know, there's sheep and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And we are down a dirt road that is not even a single path. And here I am in this Mercedes 9-seater, right in the middle of flipping nowhere, up the top of a mountain. And we find the place, and it's got a cattle gate across it, right? And they're like, oh, it's closed. It's not allow you to go in. You just have to, once you're through, and then leave it the way you found it. You can't, take anything. You can't leave your mark,
Right.
but you're allowed to access the land. So we did all of that. We left there, and I thought, I wonder what happens if I continue up around on this road instead of going back where I was. So we did that. Well, now you're not even on a single track. You're literally on 2 tire tracks with grass growing down the middle of them.
Jeez.
And we get up there, and a couple of people were in a panic because what if we break down, and if there's nobody here, and I'm like, so we come around a corner, and there was a head of red deer. There must have been 100 head of stag in there. It was phenomenal. Oh my gosh. And they're looking at us like we're the monkeys in the zoo, right?
Right.
So we stopped and we did all of that. And then we get back in the car, and now I'm carrying on this road because there's no other way to do it, because you can't even turn around. Like, there's nowhere where I could do a 3-point turn or a 5-point turn or a 79-point turn. There just was nowhere. And the gas light came on.
No.
Okay, don't tell them. Just drive. It's only 6 miles, but it could take you an hour, right? Because
yeah.
Anyway, we survived it, and it was great.
But what an awesome experience. That just, I
know. It was fun.
I want to do it just to be a part of it and witness all the fun.
I know.
Research, what's that?
I know. But you know what? It's research in a different way, right? Because you're researching, like when we were doing that, we were researching and understanding the history.
Right. There you go.
Right? Instead of sort of the records, which is what I do on my off time when they're all researching. I've had people say to me, it'll be so nice to be able to go and have you help me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do that. I hold your hand on this side of the pond. We get over there. I let you go because the experts in each place know their records way better than I could ever imagine.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a website or a blog?
Both.
And okay. And Terry will
Terry, are we keeping you up, darling?
I hate to keep you awake. Anyway, Terry will put the URL connecting to Christine's website and blog at the bottom of this video. But is there a place that people can go there to find out more about the tour, or how to sign up and register and that kind of thing?
So they can go to my website, which is genealogytoursofscotland.ca. And they can find out if they go on the navigation bar on the right-hand side, they can check and see what the Edinburgh tour is about, what the Glasgow tour is about. There's a sample itinerary there of kind of the places we visit. And then there's, other pages like talks I do and that kind of stuff, testimonials. And then, on the very first homepage, they can also click to read the blog. And if they work their way through that, when I'm on any of those trips, I blog daily about our experiences. So that kind of gives them a real
reading those.
Yeah, that gives them a real sense of what we've done and what they would be doing similarly if they came.
You should think about a few Facebook Lives while you're out there.
You know what? I know, except that, and I have done a couple of them. I've kept them really short, but the thing is, the Wi-Fi, like in the Highlands, forget it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
and if
true.
I did a Facebook Live, I mean, there's probably places where, if I was sort of in Inverness or something, I could do it. But the wind is all you would hear.
Oh, true. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Because even if I look back on videotapes from when I've taken, when Doug and I have gone and we had Doug's dad's video camera, and we're standing, my uncle took us sightseeing, and that's all you can hear is just the wind rattling the microphone, right?
Jeez.
So yeah.
Yeah, you can't very well do that.
So I've done them because when you're in Edinburgh, you never know what's going to happen, right? So I can come down from sort of the hotel and down onto Princess Street, and there'll be some pop-up band playing, or we can come out of the archives and there'll be some sort of band playing on a Friday afternoon, or, so those kinds of things I have done Facebook Lives on, but not really the research stuff.
Gotcha. That's cool.
So what do you recommend that people do? They've now gone on the trip. They've had, a year to prepare. They've gone and now they've come back. Give me 1 or 2 tips for anyone that goes, what you recommend, or what do you do when you get back? What do you do?
Right. I actually did a series of blog posts on that this time, Val, because we had talked about that before on
See,
Chit
I
Chat.
must have known that because I knew a good lead-in question.
We've had that conversation before on Chit Chat.
Yeah.
And so I actually did a series of blog posts. And I think the critical thing is, first of all, is to work with the documentation. It's so easy to come home because you've got it in a suitcase, you've got it in a file folder, and just file it away, right? And then you never see it again. And you know the story, but there's so much that you've missed because you've been caught up in the moment. So I tell everybody, process that, and then share their story, right? Whether it's they're going to give a talk in a genealogy society, they're going to write a blog, they're going to do a newsletter for their family, whatever, to share the story. And this time I've really encouraged people just to sit back and to look about how has this whole experience changed me and my understanding of my ancestors? Because you get such a depth of connection to your ancestors and to your homeland that you cannot put into words. You cannot put it into words. You know, the emotion is so raw, and you say, oh, you know, I stood there and I wept. Well, yeah, but it might have been a blubbering mess, right? Or it may even have been deeper than that. Like, it may not have been sad tears. It might have been happy tears. It could have been anything. So you really need to look at, now that I've had this experience and I've, you know, been to my ancestral homeland, I've met my ancestors through the documents, and I've seen where they, you know, where they worship, where they're buried. How am I changed, and how am I now more Scottish as a result of that?
I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think when I was in Ireland, and it might have been Chris who told me this, is not only kind of journal what you saw, but journal what you feel,
journal your emotions as well. Your
emotions, like all the senses, like
touch
it, feel it.
Yep, all of it.
Yeah, just all of it, because it is very overwhelming, very overpowering, and like even Ireland, there's so much more I can write about, but I just don't know where to begin because now it's been so long.
Yeah, but you know what, Terry? Even just thinking of you when you're saying that, thinking of you with the Blarney Stone, right? I mean, you were terrified because of the height and all of that. So your emotion in the moment and in the photograph is, oh my God, let me live beyond.
I'll remind you what your emotion was.
Of my life. But at the same time, what doesn't come through in that moment, and you don't realize till you're later, is like, oh my God, I touched history.
Yeah, absolutely.
I touched history. Right?
Oh my God,
I've got a picture of
me. I was like this.
Yeah. And I've got a picture of me, and it's actually my hand on rocks that are 5,000 years old.
Absolutely.
Right? My hand doesn't look so old on something 5,000 years old, by the way.
Very
but
true.
Yeah, I mean, it boggles your mind. You just, you can get goosebumps just thinking, people lived in this at the beginning of time.
So let me ask you this. I know that your family immigrated to Canada when you were quite young.
Uh-huh.
When you take your children to Canada, and I know that they're older now.
My children are in Canada. So do you mean when I take them to Scotland?
I meant to Scotland. Yes, sorry. Tired, need more caffeine, and need dinner. What do they feel when they go to Scotland? Is it as emotional as it is for those that are researching, or are they like, it's Scotland, whatever?
They love it. They absolutely love it. They feel
like it's their home too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I know, like Heather went when she was 3 for the first time because it was my granny's 90th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was 12 or something the next time we went. That was not a good experience, but we suffered through it. All that family dynamic crap. Mm-hmm. And they came in 2012 at the end of my tour. Mm-hmm. And we did a little bit of sightseeing and stuff. And when they came back in 2014, if I had said to Heather, I'm going to go back and I'm going to pack up your stuff and your dog, I never would see her again. Right? She'd be quite happy just to live there.
Really?
Yeah. And you know how when I don't know what you're like, Terry, but when I got back, a lot more of my Facebook feed is Scotland. So it's Scottish newspapers, it's Scottish archives, it's people who take photographs and all that kind of. So I get Scotland in my news feed every single day. Mm-hmm. And I think they're more like that as well. And she'll send me stuff on Facebook. Like there's a village for sale. Mom, look, you could live here, I could live here, and we could have the dogs and sheep.
Something about an island recently.
Yeah, that was it. She said
island, Scotland.
Yeah, and I said that my next dream vacation would be getting a tartan a camper van and taking the kids around the Highlands.
Oh, that would be cool.
So my son said, fill your boots. So I said to him, so do you not ever want to go back to Scotland? He said, I never said that. He said, I don't want to drive around. He said, go to the Highlands, go see stuff. Absolutely. But to spend it driving around roads that don't take, that take forever to get to. But he would go back to, I think all of us, if we had the money, we'd go back every year or twice a year. And we still have family there. So I think that's a real huge connection to them too.
Mm-hmm.
We saw so many of my cousins and their aunts and uncles when we were there. So it's really just nice for them to feel connected that way too.
I mean, I know it's like, I know people think I'm crazy, like outside of the genealogy world too. But like, we got off the plane and Ireland, it was beautiful and all that, but I truly felt like it was a homecoming.
Yeah. Do you know what I said? I think for a lot of people, because I hear that over and over and over again, but I think it's really kind of watching long lost family in the last couple of years and really paying attention to it, because knowing we were going to speak about it every week.
Mm-hmm.
I think for people who have Scottish ancestors and they've never been to Scotland, for them, it's the same as being an adoptee, and you finally find your biological family and you finally see where you belong. There's a huge sense of, this is me and these are my people.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. I think it's the same sort of emotion.
Absolutely.
Right?
I have to say, because, being an Irish girl who burns, doesn't like the heat, like the weather in Ireland's perfect, right? It rains.
I know, exactly, right? You see that? Have you seen that post that goes around and it's pubs, Ireland's answer to sunscreen?
Yeah, I got quite the burn on this trip, so what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Christine, because you've given such wonderful insight into why people should go there. And then also to tell them a little bit more of what they need to know and what they can look forward to in the year before they go, and then what to do when they come back. But most importantly, you've personalized it.
Mm-hmm.
You've put them, like you said, in time and place, in their ancestors' shoes. And I mean, I wish now that I would have gone seen my aunt who lived in Dumfries, Kirkmahoe, Scotland.
Oh, I love Dumfries.
Yeah, and she would send pictures and things and cards from there.
Yeah.
Even though she just lived there. She wasn't born and raised there, but just the idea, I got the feeling from that. That's why I was anxious and excited to have this chat, so you could learn more. But thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I invite anyone to ask questions for Christine here in the comments below, and we'll do our best to get them to Christine. Right, Terry? I'll need your help, Terry.
Christine knows how to find the blog and YouTube.
Oh, good. But yeah, I encourage you, or to go to Christine's website. Oh, yes.
Our alarm.
The nasty, the nasty alarm clock. But thank you all for joining us for this episode of the In-Depth Genealogist Chit Chat Live. Again, follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Send us a quick email, info@theinDepthGenealogist.com. Until next time, I bid you all a fond farewell and go in depth with all of your ancestors. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.